before the championships, before the fame, before the world knew his name. There was a girl who believed in him first. When Michael Jordan returned to his hometown years later, he didn't come back for applause or headlines. He came looking for someone from his past, his very first love. What happened next wasn't caught on camera, but the gift he gave her reveals a side of Michael Jordan few people have ever seen. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss an update. Now let's dive into what really happened. Before the championships, before the global fame, before the name Michael Jordan meant greatness, there was a quiet boy running down familiar streets, chasing a dream no one else could yet see. Long before packed arenas screamed his name, Michael Jordan was just another kid in his hometown. No cameras followed him. No reporters waited outside gyms. No contracts promised him a future. There was no spotlight. Only sweat, hope, and an unshakable desire to be better than he was yesterday. Every morning looked simple. School, practice, home, repeat. But inside that routine lived something powerful. A hunger to prove himself. A refusal to accept limits. And a belief, still fragile, that he was meant for something more. This town shaped him. The cracked sidewalks he ran on strengthened his legs. The small neighborhood courts sharpened his instincts. The sound of a basketball echoing in the open air became the rhythm of his youth. He learned early that talent alone was enough. On those courts, he lost games that hurt deeply, losses that stayed with him long after the sun went down. Those defeats taught him something important. Failure could either break you or build you, and Michael chose to let it build him. The local courts still carried memories of laughter, arguments, competition, and ambition. Kids arguing over fouls. Friends pushing each other harder. Long hours spent practicing shots long after others had gone home. These were the moments that formed the foundation of everything that would come later. But basketball wasn't the only thing in his world back then. Somewhere between practices and school days, there was something softer, quieter, more human. His first love. She wasn't famous. She didn't care about basketball stats or future success. She wasn't impressed by dreams of stardom. She knew Michael as a regular boy, sometimes confident, sometimes frustrated, sometimes unsure of himself. She saw him after tough losses. When doubt crept in, she heard him talk about his dreams without knowing whether they would ever come true. She knew the version of Michael that existed before the world placed expectations on him. To her, he wasn't a future icon. He was just Michael, and that mattered more than anyone realized at the time. Life, of course, moved forward. Paths changed. Dreams expanded. Time did what it always does. It separated people without asking permission. Michael chased his future with relentless focus. She built a life away from the spotlight. And the world slowly began to notice something special about that determined kid from a small town. Years passed. Championships followed. The name Michael Jordan became larger than life. Success arrived on a scale few people ever experience. But no matter how far he traveled, that hometown remained part of him. Years later, after everything he had become, Michael Jordan returned home, not for a parade, not for applause, not for speeches or ceremonies. This visit was quiet, personal, because some journeys don't end when success begins. Some chapters wait patiently, untouched by fame or time. And somewhere in those familiar streets, among old memories and quiet moments, there was still something unfinished. Not a game to win, not a record to break, but a reminder of who he was before the world decided who he should be. Returning home has a strange effect on the mind. Streets that once felt endless now seem shorter. Houses that once looked tall feel closer together. Even the air feels different, heavier with memory. Places don't change much, but people do. And sometimes, coming back makes you realize how far you've traveled. As Michael Jordan walked through familiar neighborhoods, memories surface without warning. A corner where he once waited for friends. A driveway where a basketball bounced late into the evening. A school building that had once felt like the center of the universe. Each step forward pulled something from the past into present. Faces began to appear in his mind. Old friends he hadn't seen in years. Old rivals who once pushed him harder than anyone else. People remembered him not as a legend, but as a local kid with big dreams and restless energy. Then, in the middle of a casual conversation, someone said her name. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't announced with meaning. It was just mentioned, the way names from the past often are. His first girlfriend. For a moment, everything slowed. The noise of the present faded, replaced by a quieter time. A time when life was simpler, but emotions felt bigger. When the future was uncertain, and dreams felt both exciting and terrifying. She was the girl who believed in him, when believing didn't come with rewards. When he was just another high school kid trying to prove himself, not to the world, but to himself. She remembered him before the trophies, before the expectations, before the pressure to be perfect. Back then, Michael wasn't a legend. He was a teenager full of doubts and fire, confident one moment, frustrated the next. He wanted greatness, but didn't yet know how much it would demand from him. She had seen him after tough losses, when words came slowly and frustration sat heavy on his shoulders. She had listened as he talked about his dreams, not polished speeches, just raw thoughts spoken honestly, dreams that sounded big, maybe even unrealistic to most people. But she listened anyway. She watched him work when no one else was paying attention. Early mornings, long afternoons, late nights. She saw the discipline before the recognition, the effort before the reward. She knew the version of Michael that existed before the world started watching. Time, however, doesn't stop for anyone. Life moved them in different directions, quietly and without ceremony. She built a private life away from attention and noise. A normal life, a steady life, one filled with everyday responsibilities and simple moments. Michael's path went the opposite way. His life became louder, bigger, faster. Success arrived, followed by expectations that never seemed to ease. His name became a symbol. His face became familiar to millions. His time stopped belonging only to him. And yet, hearing her name again, after all these years, made something pause inside. They met quietly. There were no cameras waiting outside, no headlines announcing the moment, no crowd watching from a distance. Just two people sitting across from each other, separated by years, but connected by memories that time had never truly erased. The setting was simple. A calm, familiar place. Nothing dramatic. Nothing staged. And that was exactly how it needed to be. When she walked in, she didn't see the global icon first. She didn't see championships, records, or the weight of a legendary name. She saw the same determined kid she once knew. The same familiar smile. The same focused eyes that had always hinted at ambition, even when the future was uncertain. And when Michael looked at her, he didn't see success or status either. He didn't see life measured by achievements. He saw comfort, honesty, stability. He saw a version of himself that existed before pressure shaped every decision and expectation followed every step. For a moment, the world outside stopped mattering. They spoke slowly at first, as people do when they aren't sure where to begin. Small memories surfaced, school days, familiar places, shared moments that felt distant but strangely close. Each story unlocked another, until the silence between them became easy instead of awkward. They talked about life, about choices they made when they didn't know where those choices would lead, about paths that slowly separated without conflict or blame, about how time has a way of answering questions you didn't even know you were asking. Michael listened more than he spoke. He listened the way he once did, before interviews and expectations taught him to choose his words carefully. And she spoke freely, without trying to impress or prove anything. There was no regret in the room, no desire to rewrite the past, no attempt to relive what once was. The moment wasn't about romance, and it wasn't about what could have been. It was about appreciation for a chapter that had ended exactly the way it was supposed to. They acknowledged how fast everything changes, how quickly life moves when you're chasing something, how easy it is to lose touch with people when the future pulls you forward. Yet despite the time apart, there was warmth, a quiet respect that hadn't faded, a shared understanding that some connections don't disappear. They simply settle into something calmer and deeper. Michael realized something in that moment. Success had given him everything he once dreamed of, but it had also taken things quietly, without asking. Privacy, simplicity, the ability to live without being watched. And meeting her reminded him of a time when life was lighter, when ambition was powerful but uncomplicated. He hadn't come home looking to relive his past. He had come home carrying something heavier than nostalgia. Gratitude. Gratitude for someone who believed in him, when belief didn't come with reward, when there was no guarantee of success, when encouragement was given simply because it felt right. He understood that not everyone who supports you at the beginning gets to share in the end result. Some people contribute silently. They play their role early, then step away as the story grows bigger. And those people are often forgotten. Michael didn't forget, because sometimes the people who believed in you before success deserve acknowledgement after it. Not publicly, not loudly, but honestly. And in that quiet meeting, surrounded by memories and mutual respect, he understood something deeply human. Greatness isn't just about how far you go. It's about who you remember once you get there. Before leaving, Michael Jordan gave her a gift. There were no cameras present, no reporters waiting outside, no headlines prepared. It happened quietly, the way meaningful moments often do. Just two people, standing at the edge of a shared past, acknowledging something that words alone couldn't fully express. The gift wasn't flashy. It wasn't designed to impress. It didn't scream wealth or success. Instead, it carried something far more valuable: intention. Because this gift was never about the price. It was about the message. Michael had spent most of his life in a world where numbers define value. Scores, contracts, records, championships. Everything was measured, compared, ranked. But this moment existed outside of all that. This was personal, human. The gift symbolized appreciation, real appreciation, not for loyalty to fame, but for belief when belief was inconvenient, for support when there was nothing to gain, for standing beside a dream before that dream had any proof it would ever succeed. Back then, there were no guarantees, no endorsements, no future written in bold letters. Just a young man chasing something uncertain, and someone willing to believe without asking for anything in return. That kind of belief stays with you. Michael understood that the people who see you before success are rare. They don't love the image. They don't admire the achievements. They know the effort, the doubt, the frustration, and the quiet determination that comes long before the applause. This gift was his way of honoring that truth. To Michael, this wasn't charity. Charity implies distance. It implies power on one side and need on the other. This was different. This was respect. Respect for a shared past. Respect for sincerity. Respect for someone who knew him as a person, not a brand. When he handed her the gift, it wasn't accompanied by a long speech. There was no dramatic explanation. Just a simple moment filled with meaning. Sometimes, the most powerful messages don't need many words. What mattered was what the gift represented. It said, "I remember. I appreciate. You mattered and you still do." In a world obsessed with achievements, moments like this are easy to overlook. Success often rewrites history, replacing early chapters with polished narratives. People become footnotes. Memories fade behind trophies. But this moment revealed something rare. Behind the championships, behind the competitive fire that defined his career, was a man who remembered his roots. Someone who understood that greatness is never built alone. The journey to the top is often portrayed as a solo climb, but in reality, it's shaped by countless quiet moments: encouragement after losses, belief during uncertainty, patience during growth. Those moments don't disappear just because success arrives. Michael's gesture reminded us that acknowledgement doesn't have an expiration date. Gratitude doesn't lose value with time, and respect doesn't need an audience. For her, the gift wasn't about what it was. It was about what it meant. It was proof that the past hadn't been erased by fame, that the version of Michael she knew still existed beneath the legacy, that her presence in his early life hadn't been forgotten or diminished by everything that came later. And for Michael, this moment wasn't about looking backward with regret. It was about closing a chapter with grace. Because sometimes the most meaningful victories aren't celebrated in arenas. They happen quietly, in moments where success pauses long enough to acknowledge the people who helped shape it. This gift didn't add to his legacy in the public eye, but it revealed the character behind it, and that, perhaps, is what made it priceless. This story isn't really about fame. It's about remembering where you came from. The world often tells us that greatness is built on talent alone, that success belongs only to the most gifted, the most visible, the most celebrated. But the truth is far quieter and far more human. The greatness of Michael Jordan wasn't shaped only by skill. It was shaped by relationships, by early failures that stung deeply, by encouragement that arrived before results, by belief that existed long before applause ever did. Long before the world called him great, someone believed he could become something more, and that kind of belief matters. Success has a way of changing people. It changes how the world treats you. It changes what others expect from you. And sometimes, it changes how you see yourself. When achievement arrives, it's easy to focus only on what's ahead. The next goal, the next milestone, the next challenge. But true greatness does something different. True greatness remembers the past without being trapped by it. It doesn't deny where it came from. It doesn't rewrite early chapters to make the ending look more impressive. It acknowledges that the journey mattered just as much as the destination. This story reminds us that not every meaningful moment happens on stage. Some of the most powerful gestures happen far away from cameras, in quiet rooms, in private conversations, in moments that will never trend online. And yet, those moments often say the most. A simple act of gratitude, a quiet acknowledgement, a moment of reflection. These things don't build public legacies, but they reveal character. In a culture obsessed with achievements, we often overlook the people who supported us before success made us interesting. The friends who encouraged us when we were uncertain. The people who listened when our dreams sounded unrealistic. The ones who believed when there was nothing to gain. They don't always stay in our lives forever, but they leave something behind, and that deserves recognition. This story teaches us that gratitude isn't weakness. It isn't nostalgia. It's strength. It's awareness. It's understanding that success is rarely a solo effort, even when it looks that way from the outside. Before the world knows your name, someone already sees your potential. Someone listens when you talk about your dreams. Someone supports you when results don't show up yet. Someone believes before believing becomes popular. Never forget them, because time moves quickly. Life gets busy. Goals get bigger. And without realizing it, we sometimes move so far forward that we forget to look back with appreciation. But when the noise fades, when applause quiets, what remains isn't the trophies or the titles. What remains are the moments that shaped you, the people who stood beside you when the journey was uncertain, the belief that came before proof. And maybe that's the most important lesson of all. Greatness isn't just about how high you rise. It's about how well you remember the ground you stood on first. Because long after the noise fades, those moments are what truly last.